part of our daily coverage leading up to the trade deadline coming up on February 8th. This video comes to you guys talking about the Utah Jazz's plans and how they may have or may not have actually changed in our anticipation for what this team will end up being this season as well as the preceding seasons to come. With that being said, it's your boy Ray Hoops. Thanks for tuning in this video. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications for more breaking Utah Jazz news and for more insights on the team. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this one. Now, everybody remembers when 2 seasons ago, they decided to blow up the team in favor of trying to rebuild and build a contender that could genuinely contend in the Western Conference and across the NBA. They broke up the duo of Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, sending one to Cleveland and the other to Minnesota in exchange for several draft picks as well as a few players that have actually surprisingly panned out very well. With that being said, there's a lot more draft picks on the table along with some conversions going on. And leading into this trade deadline, the team is just a game under 500 at 25-26 at the point of the recording this video. However, they're hoping to continue to build on that contending status that they hope to eventually have. With that being said, the expectation isn't so much that they decide to go ahead and just buy in and become a play-in team right now this year, but that they might already be fringe around that level. With that being said, the expectation is that they continue to build on this over the next couple seasons and become a genuine contender, as opposed to simply blowing it up again and trading away guys like Lauri Markkanen and Collin Sexton, who have been the 2 most consistent scorers that have allowed this team to propel itself into the 10th seed, which at this rate would keep them in the play-in. These intentions were made clear in a recent episode of The Low Post, in which case NBA insider Ryan Mahan actually detailed that the Jazz's main expectation leading into this year's trade deadline is the fact that they hope to focus more so on the big picture and not become too short-sighted. Now, with this team currently sitting inside of play-in waters, one might think, oh, perhaps this means that they're going to go ahead and riskily just go ahead and dash all their pieces and become sellers at the deadline. But no, I don't really see it that way. The direct quote goes as follows. I think last year gives a very clear indication that the Jazz aren't going to go all in for the play-in. They're trying to build a contender as quickly as possible. That's exactly what Danny Ainge, Justin Zanuck, and Ryan Smith told me last year. Nothing has changed there. If they land in the play-in, great, but that's not going to be their goal. That is not what guides them in the days leading up to the trade deadline. Now, with that being said, they also have a top 10 protected pick that will end up getting conveyed to the Oklahoma City Thunder if they do end up in the play-in. However, that is not the biggest thing on their minds at the moment, though many fans, and myself included, view it as a situation where we would rather convey the pick this year than next year when the draft class as a whole is considered to be better from top to bottom. Ryan had this to say about the topic. They owe their first round pick to the Oklahoma City Thunder from the Derek Favors salary dump that is a top 10 protected. They'd have to do some pretty serious tanking to get into that. I don't think that's going to guide anything. That's just something to note there. Which, case in point, I believe that this team is at worst a play-in team and at best probably a fringe 8th seed, 7th seed, 6th seed at a ceiling type squad. Considering that they have the ability to play very well at home, but they've had a lot of rocky bouts on the road, particularly as of late, in which case, if they do manage to win out despite their strong and difficulty as far as their strength of schedule is concerned for the remainder of the season, I think this team could go ahead and make a quick run and potentially steal a couple games in the first round of this year's playoffs. Depending on their matchup, they might even be able to pull off an upset. Now, the most important thing to take away from that is the fact that over these next 48 hours, it's going to be a very peak time to see what all can actually get done by not only the Utah Jazz, but other teams in the league. If you remember, I claimed that the Utah Jazz were very heavily involved and actually made an offer on DeJounte Murray, which would actually elevate this team not just temporarily for this year, but for the next few years down the line, while Keyonte George has more time to develop into the point guard that they hope he will be for them in the future. With that being said, DeJounte Murray is still pretty young in his own right, and so it's reasonable to assume that he could also help boost the floor of this team on a game-by-game basis, similar to Lauri Markkanen, who's still only 26. Continuing on down that path, it's important to take note of the simple fact that the Utah Jazz, alongside the Oklahoma City Thunder and a couple of other teams, have genuine assets to go ahead and be buyers at this point in the season. You've seen teams like the Los Angeles Lakers also be really interested in trading for other things. And as a matter of fact, recent breaking news tells us that the Dallas Mavericks have actually decided to go ahead and dashed their plans of continuing the experiment with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. Not because they don't work on the off chance that they do play together, because again, injuries have played very heavily into this team's recent outcome, but also because they just don't think that there's enough conclusive evidence to prove that this duo can actually become a contender. With that being said, if you'll remember, the Lakers also were the first team to put in for the DeJounte Murray sweepstakes. Admittedly, the Hawks aren't guaranteed to trade him, and it's more of a 50-50 split. I believe that a decision on that will come down on Thursday night, and if it does, then cool. But if not, it will also be understood that the Hawks are fine with maintaining him. With that being said, if the Lakers do actually manage to pull off a trade with the Dallas Mavericks to bring in Kyrie Irving, because realistically, not only are they the only team that will really be heavily involved in that, but they also are willing to give up assets in order to retain his contract as it is, that would effectively remove them from the DeJounte Murray situation, which would leave the Jazz as the only other team that has an official offer put in those waters. With that being said, there's no guarantee the Atlanta Hawks actually decide to go through with it, but it still remains something to keep an eye on. And I, for one, would welcome DeJounte Murray with open arms. The only question mark there would be how big his ego would be in comparison to the rest of the team, because this has been a pretty egoless roster. Combine that with the fact that he has a very tenacious mentality when it comes to winning basketball games, similar to Collin Sexton, and either those two personalities will mesh very well and you'll see fireworks in the backcourt for the remainder of the season and for a couple years to go, or you might end up seeing the situation go south very quickly and those fireworks be actually the self-destruction of the team's core. With that being said, the Utah Jazz have to first be able to properly assess the worth that he has, because again, they said they wanted a starting caliber player plus 2 first-round picks. And while the Jazz do have that, are they going to be willing to go ahead and value DeJounte Murray at that level and give that up? Or will they have to make a slight overpay to convince the Hawks to actually make that sale? And if you're Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck, do you actually decide, you know what, this is what we want to add to our team? What we're willing to give up for him is going to be more than compounded in the return that we get from adding him to the roster. With that being said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know what you think the Jazz will end up doing the most at the trade deadline. Do you think they'll be buyers for the most part, sellers, or a little bit in between? And if so, who do you think the top 3 players are that are going to be on the block? With that being said, it's your boy Wraith Hoops. Thanks for tuning in to this update. And as always, go ahead and like that video, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and become a member to support the content coming out. Shout out to Tayton for the video idea. As always, good morning, good evening, good night, no matter where you're on the globe watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you boys in the next one. Peace.